Welcome to ECE 302. This is lecture 1.5 on Combinatorics. I am Professor Stanley Chan. Here's the outline of today's lecture. We're going to learn about two things in Combinatorics. One is called the permutation, the other one is called the combination. The problem of permutation is the following. Suppose you have n balls, and then these n balls all have different color. Suppose you want to pick k balls, and then you're doing this experiment, picking the balls without replacement. We ask how many configurations can you have, and I want to mention that the ordering of the balls actually matters. So for example, if you pick A, B, C, that is going to be different from B, A, C. The main theorem about permutation is the following. The number of permutations of choosing K out of n is given by this quantity. It's n factorial divided by n minus k factorial. Now, this number of permutations is precisely defining this problem. Okay, so how many configurations can you have? This number is called the number of permutations. This theorem says that the number of permutations is given by this ratio. Now, of course, you may start to wonder, how can you obtain this quantity? And so let us try to understand this result by a visualization. Suppose I have 5 balls, okay, 5 different colored balls. You have blue, you have red, orange, and so on. You have 5 different balls. And then you want to pick 3 balls out of these 5. And we ask how many permutations can you obtain from this experiment. All right, so now you can start this experiment with the following. Let's say you start with 5, and then you pick randomly this one. This is a green ball. Okay, so you pick this one, and then afterwards you are landing here. And since this is an experiment without replacement, and so the green ball is gone, and so when you go to the second stage, you only have 4 options left. And among these 4 options, suppose you pick this orange, then you go to the third level. In the third level, you have only 3 options left, and so you will pick one of those. Okay, and let's say you pick a light blue color. And therefore, after 3 stages, 1, 2, 3, you have picked 3 colored balls. They are all distinct. Okay, and you can imagine what will happen if I want to pick 4 balls. Well, you just go through this tree one more level. Then you can get 4 balls. Okay, and so now we go back to all these layers. We ask, how many options can we obtain at each layer? Clearly, you have 5 choices in the base layer. You have 1 less in the first layer, and then another 1 less as you progress. Okay, and so the total number of permutations will start with 5 choices in the base level, and then you have 1 less, and so you have 5 times 4. Okay, why is it 5 times 4? Well, suppose in the first round you're not choosing a green, well, you're choosing a light blue, then you also have 4 options, right? And therefore, for any configurations you have in this level, you have 5 possible initial states. Therefore, you have 5 times 4. Now, and then as you go to the third level, then you will just say 5 times 4 times 3. So this will define you the number of permutations. Okay, so let's look at this example. This example says that consider a set that contains 4 balls, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We want to pick 2 balls at random without replacement. And then I mentioned that the ordering actually matters. And we ask how many permutations can you obtain. So let's say you have 4 balls, red, green, orange, and blue. They are denoted as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so in the base level, you have 4 options. And then now you go out to the second level, then what do you have? Well, if you are here, since you have already chosen a red ball, you cannot have a red ball again. And so you can only choose a green, a orange, or a blue. Okay, so how many options are there? Here you have 4 options, and then here you have 3 options. And therefore, altogether, since you're only picking 2 balls, then the total number of permutations will just be 4 times 3. Okay, so now let's go back to our theorem. This theorem is a little bit more generalized in terms of the expression. It is n factorial divided by n minus k factorial. But if you look at this case, it's just 5 times 4 times 3. Okay, so why do we want to write it in that complicated form? So in general, this expression is just n times n minus 1 times n minus 2, right? Okay, so let's say if I want to pick k balls, okay, then what should I do? Well, if you want to pick k balls, then this will become n times n minus 1 times n minus what? Well, n minus k plus 1. Okay, why? Because this is your base, this is the first one, this is the kth one. Okay, because you want to pick k balls, you must have this plus 1 here, because then you have k minus 1, right? So this is 0, 1, and so on. You have k minus 1. So altogether you have k balls. So this is the actual quantity that you want. But this can also be expressed as n times n minus 1 times dot 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 times n minus k plus 1 times dot 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 times 3, 2, 1, okay, divide by anything that you don't want. So that would become n minus k minus 1 dot 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 and 3 and 2 and 1. Okay, and so this is what. Then if you look at this expression, then the numerator is just n factorial, and then the denominator is another factorial, but you go all the way to n minus k, so you have n minus k factorial. Therefore, this 5 times 4 times 3 is the same as 5 factorial divided by 2 factorial, because this is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 divided by 2 and 1, because these 2 and 1, they can cancel out each other. So now you can see why the theorem says that the number of permutations is defined as n factorial divided by n minus k factorial. The second half of this lecture is on combination. The combination is very similar to a permutation. Clearly, this is not permutation, this is combination. A combination says that the order actually does not matter. What I mean is that if you have ABC, that is going to be the same as BAC. And so we can ask what in this case, what would be the number of combinations you have? And the theorem says that the number of combinations is n divided by n minus k factorial. You have one more factor of k factorial in the denominator. Okay, so again, let us just draw the number of balls and then visualize this experiment. before we try to evaluate that equation. So let's go back to the same example before. You have 5 balls, and then you want to pick 3 out of those. And suppose you start with the green, that is your initial case, and you trace along this path, then you get a green, you get an orange, you get a light blue. That is one configuration you can get. However, if you start with this light blue ball, and then you get an orange, and then you get a green, you get this configuration. This configuration is certainly different from this if you cared about the ordering, because this is green, orange, and blue. This is blue, orange, and green. However, if you do not care about the order, then these two are actually the same. So in the combination setting, you want to eliminate the redundancy between cases like these. So we ask, among all these 5 balls and among all these possible configurations, which is the number of permutations, how many of those will give you exactly the same green, blue, and orange in different arrangements, though? In here is just the enumeration of all the possible cases, and you can count there are 6 of those. Okay, and so if there are 6 of those, then you have 5 times 3 times 2. This is your base permutation. Then you want to divide by what? Well, you want to divide by 6 in order to remove all these redundancies. So this would be the number of combinations. But if you need to do this exhaustive search every time, this would become very tedious. And so here is a very easy way of doing the calculation. Suppose you have these 3 balls, green, blue, and orange. These are the balls that you need to count how many redundancy factors. So you start with a green, you have a blue, you have orange. Then that would be your baseline case. You have 3 options. And then if you go down the tree, you can see that in the second stage, you only have 2 options left, okay? Because if you have chosen the green, there are only 2 options. It's either a light blue or orange. And then when you go to the third stage, you only have 1 option left, okay? So essentially, you have 3 choices, 2 choices, and 1 choices. That when you multiply together, it will be 3 times 2 times 1, okay? So you ask, what is the redundancy factor? We call redundancy factor. This is exactly just 3 times 2 times 1. That would be the redundancy factor if you're choosing 3 balls. Okay, now if you try to match this 3 times 2 times 1, this is exactly this 6. Okay, and so now if I want to generalize, originally you have n factorial divided by n minus k factorial. And this 3 times 2 times 1, this is actually k factorial, right? Because k is the number of balls that you want to pick. And therefore, you will divide this permutation by this k factorial. So this is the number of combinations that you can get from this combination experiment where the order does not matter. So here is an example. Suppose you have 4 balls. You want to pick 2 balls at random without replacement, and the order does not matter. And we ask how many combinations you can have. So you have a red, you have a green, and then you have an orange, and then you have a blue, and then you want to pick 2 balls. So we go to the second stage. Then you have green, orange, and blue as a choice. So you have 4 choices here. You have 3 choices here. However, since you're picking 2 balls, then you need to remove the redundancy. So it will be 4 times 3. Divide by how many options here? It will be 2 times 1. Okay. So originally you have 12, and then now you need to divide by 2, so you have 6 options. Okay. So now let me show you more examples. I'm not going to solve these two problems completely, but I want to give you some hints of how to do this problem. I encourage you to do these problems at home by yourself. The first example is that suppose you have a collection of letters A to Z mixed in a jar. Two letters are drawn at random, one after the other. We want to count the probability of drawing a vowel and a consonant in either order. So probability, we haven't really defined it yet, but you can imagine in these 26 letters, the probability would just be something divided by 26 in that matter. Okay, so you will see pretty soon how we are going to solve this problem. So suppose you want to draw two letters, okay? You want to make sure that the first is a vowel and then the other one is a consonant. So you ask, okay, so let me just walk into this room and then I want to pick a vowel. How many options are there? Well, so you have a 1, 2, all the way to 26. And among these 26 options, only how many of them are valid? Well, you only have 5 options are valid. Okay, and then this 5, of course, the probability of picking these 5 out of 26 is just 5 divided by 26. So that is the 5 is the number of vowels that you can choose from. Now we can also ask what is the number of consonants that you can pick from. So how many consonants are there? There are 21 consonants. Okay, so you have 21 consonants because 5 of those, among the 26 letters, 5 of those are vowels. So 21 are consonants, and we ask, okay, how many options that you can have after you have picked one? Okay, so you can imagine that in this jar, this is the first one you pick, and it has to be a vowel. And then you ask, what is the second one? Well, since one is out already, then you only have 25 left. Okay, and so the probability of picking a vowel followed by a consonant is just this number, 5 divided by 26 times 21 divided by 25. Okay, so that would be the probability. However, you don't know whether you are picking a vowel first or you're picking a consonant first. Okay, so this is a vowel first, and then consonant second. Okay, there's another possibility that you pick consonants first, and then you have vowel second. This probability equals to what? Okay, and then now you need to add these two up. Okay, you need to add this number and this number up. That would be your total probability. So that would be your total probability. Okay, so you should try this exercise at home and see if you can get the answer. Another thing you can try is that you can try to program this experiment on a computer, because drawing a random number on computer is fairly standard. You can go to internet and there are plenty of tutorials online that telling you how to draw random numbers, and then you can repeat this experiment multiple times, and then you can record the probability, and then you can see if your calculation is correct when compared to the numerical simulation. The second example is the following. Suppose there are 50 students in a classroom. We ask, what is the probability that there is at least one pair of students having the same birthday? So you have many students, okay, and then these students, of course, everyone will have a different birthday. So let's say this student has a birthday of January the 1st. The student has a birthday of December 31st. And so in this experiment, you randomly pick a pair of students. Let's say you pick this one and you pick this one. You ask, what is the probability that this guy is also born on December 31st? So now, if you think about this problem, you may realize that, wow, okay, this probability could be extremely small because you are asking two students to have the same birthday. So the number of birthdays, it would be 365, and then you want to pick one, that would be this, and then you need to pick another one, 365 again. So that seems to be an extremely small number. But let me tell you, this is not the answer, okay? This is not the answer to this problem. What you want to calculate is that uh, uh, you want these two students to have the same birthday, but we can also ask, what is the probability that no one shares the same birthday? Okay, so no one shares the same birthday. That means what? Well, so that if I know this, then if I can calculate this probability, then 1 minus this quantity here, that will just become the probability of at least one pair of students, right? At least one pair same birthday. Right? Because if no one shared the same birthday, I can calculate this probability, and then 1 minus that, and that has to be the complement of this event, which would be the probability of having at least one pair of students having the same birthday. So we can just calculate this probability. This probability is what? This probability wants to ask, the first one picks a day, and then the second one picks a different day. So you can go to this experiment here. You can ask, okay, if I should have 365 choices for the first student. Okay, so the first student will have 365 options. Now, how about the second student? Well, the second student will clearly have how many options here? 364 options, because the person cannot pick the same day as the previous person. If the second person has the same birthday has the same birthday as previous person, then you're not calculating this probability. Okay, so you only have this 364 options for the second guy. But how many students are here? You have 350 students, so you need to go all the way to somewhere, right? So this is a number which you need to figure out. But what is the meaning of this? Well, so this is the first student. This is the second student. The first student say that I have 365 options to choose from. The second student says that, okay, you have chosen the January 1st. I cannot choose that because otherwise I will share the same birthday as you. And so I only have 364 options. And then now you need to go down this row, and then you have 50 students. You want to make sure that the last one also do not have the same birthday as anyone before him or her. Okay, so you calculate this number, and then that will give you the number of combinations. And so what would be the probability? It would be 365 divided by 365 times 364 divided by 365, and so on. So that will become the probability of having no two people sharing the same birthday. Okay, because why? Because this is the number of options that everyone has. This is the number of permutations you can have, and then here is the base number of options that you can choose. So it would be this ratio. So once you can calculate this probability, you can take 1 minus, and then you can calculate this at least one pair of students who have the same birthday. Now, this number is not as small as you have thought, okay? And you can try to also do a numerical experiment, try to simulate this event and see what is the outcome of your numerical experiment, and see if your numerical simulation will match with your actual calculation. So I encourage you to take a look at this problem, think carefully how do you solve this problem, and then write a program and then try to solve it. And once you can do this problem, you have much better understanding of what do I mean by permutation and combination. So I'm sure you will have some questions. If you do, please feel free to send us an email or post a question on Piazza. We'll be very happy to discuss the problems with you. Thank you.